again, and welcome back for another video. The Chemical Brothers' debut album, Exit Planet Dust, is a demolition derby of breakbeats and sample-heavy pyrotechnics. Combining the attitude of rock with the energy of club music, this mainstream breakthrough erupted onto the scene in 1995, chock full of buzzsaw synthesizers and drum breaks that could plow through roadblocks. How did this electronic duo accomplish what contemporaries couldn't? Burst onto the pop music charts at number 9 in the UK, transporting electronic music from underground raves to people's living rooms. Well, buckle up, because today we're gonna discuss nicking a hip-hop production duo's name, hustling record shops with hype tactics, and Bernard Sumner's doorbell roulette. This is the story of Exit Planet Dust, 30 years on. Before they became pioneers of big beat and electronic music royalty, the Chemical Brothers were just two college friends with an obsession for sound. Tom Rowlands and Ed Simons met in 1989 at the University of Manchester. Both enrolled in history, but their shared love of music would take their lives in a very different direction. Tom Rowlands: I used to religiously read The Enemy and Melody Maker when I was a teenager. The late 80s were such a pivotal time for hip-hop, and the way they wrote about the scene made a massive impression on me. One of my first gigs was Public Enemy at Hammersmith Odeon in 1987. Their track, My Uzi Weighs a Ton, was seismic. I'd picked up a cheap drum machine by then and would try to copy their beats. The first bands I really loved were Madness and the Specials. As that scene faded, early synth-pop music took over and I became hooked on Heaven 17, Alphaville, and Depeche Mode. My next-door neighbor was a big Mode head and had a Roland SH-101 keyboard that was an incredible, futuristic thing to play around on. By the time I was at secondary school, my real musical obsession was New Order. To this day, their Everything's Gone Green EP is probably my perfect record. Later, I went through a goth phase. The Sisters of Mercy's early EPs, Alice and Temple of Love, had a strange claustrophobic sound. I love the relentlessness of how they programmed the drums. In their own ways, each of these genres made a huge impression on me. The sense of community at the discos and a fascination with music made by machines. Ed Simons. Speak and Spell by Depeche Mode came out when I was 12 years old. It was the first album I ever bought. I loved it as a pop record, and I love the cleanness in its sound. I just followed chart music at that age really, and headed to Wismith every Saturday with enough money to buy my two favorite 7-inch singles. Heaven 17 one week, Adam and the Ants the next. Music only became a way of expressing some kind of identity to me when I became obsessed with the Smiths, adopting an image inspired by them that involved wearing long overcoats, smoking cigarettes, and being wistful in Bel Air Park. In the summer of 1987, I had a friend whose older brother was pretty switched on to the early acid and Balearic house scene. He would tell us about crazy parties he was going to. I remember they would go from the cold cut mix of Eric B. and Rakim to Last Night by Kid and Play, and then this crew would sit in a circle communing to This Mortal Coil's song To the Siren. Around this time, Manchester was exploding with creativity. The Manchester movement had fused indie rock and acid house with something raw and euphoric, and clubs like the Hacienda were legendary across the UK. Ed Simons. I met Tom on one of my first days at university. He had the stereo with big speakers, a briefcase of sound, and he put on a Tackhead record. I'd never heard them before. Listening to it, I thought, this is the stuff. I think it was inevitable that we'd end up on the dance floor at the Hacienda together within a week or two. The rest, as they say, is history. What started as crate digging at Eastern Bloc Records and conversation over the bands they mutually loved in dorm rooms soon evolved into late-night mixing sessions and a growing reputation on Manchester's underground scene. It was in this electric atmosphere that Tom and Ed began spinning records together, blending old-school hip-hop, Chicago house, rare funk cuts, and psychedelic sounds of the 60s and 70s. Their sets were unpredictable, energetic, and refreshingly different. Early on, they took inspiration from an eclectic mix of artists, from the breakbeat science of Public Enemy and the sample-heavy genius of De La Soul, to the atmospheric synths of New Order and rowdy swagger of the Happy Mondays. They were absorbing it all. But unlike most DJs at the time, they weren't content with playing other people's music. They wanted to craft their own sonic identity. Initially performing under the name the Dust Brothers, a tribute to the American production team behind the Beastie Boys' Paul's Boutique, the duo started to carve out a unique space in the UK club scene. Tom Rowlands. There wasn't a grand plan when we chose the name Dust Brothers. It just sounded cool and exotic. We loved what they, the original Dust Brothers, did. We loved their productions. I suppose it's the ultimate thing in sampling, pinching another artist's name. We'll take the drum beat, and we'll take the name too. The duo's nights at the Naked Under Leather party caught the attention of tastemakers, and soon they were invited to perform their hybrid DJ set / electronic performance at a Sunday night event in London called the Heavenly Sunday Social. It would become a pivotal chapter in their story. Tom Rowlands. At early Dust Brothers gigs, I'd taken a Kai MPC 3000 sequencer / sampler and a Juno 106. Some of the songs we'd play off the Akai, and then when we were reloading, we'd have bits on a DAT player or a multi-track, and we'd mix between the two. That was a safety net because you didn't want everything to collapse in a room full of people. But the setup meant that we could go off on a techno tangent if the mood took us. The Heavenly Sunday Social was unlike any other club night in London. It was small, intense, and packed with people hungry for new sounds. Here, Tom and Ed found an audience ready to embrace their wild blends of acid house, funk, and early breakbeat experiments. Their sets became infamous for pushing boundaries, blending acid house bangers into the Beatles' Tomorrow Never Knows, dropping obscure samples mid-track, and building a hypnotic atmosphere that was ever evolving. In the quiet hours between gigs, the duo started crafting music in Tom's bedroom studio called the Dust Bowl. Their first breakthrough was Song to the Siren, self-released in 1992 on tiny label Diamond Records. Built on a haunting vocal of Dead Can Dance singer Lisa Gerrard and a relentless mid-tempo beat, the track was raw but undeniably powerful. Ed. Song to the Siren was us just doing something just for the fun of it. There wasn't really any more ambition other than to see what it could do for us that summer. Maybe it would be a calling card and would help us get a few more DJ gigs. Tom. The ambition with that track was to create the thing, the sound that our DJ sets were lacking. We were really into things like In Dub by Renegade Soundwave and bands like Meat Beat Manifesto, records that had a slow heaviness to them. I've always loved those records that stop the night for a moment, records that stop you in your tracks and change the direction of everything. To this day, it has that same effect in the live set. It feels like everything is pitching down. Ed. The marketing on it was a very basic hustle. I used to ring up record shops and say, I'm coming into town. I heard Andy Weatherall playing the other day. There was this record with a big siren on it and a big fuck off beat, because it so obviously is the record with the siren in that beat. And then I'd go into the shop later with a box of 20 and say, I've got this record that Andy Weatherall's been playing out a lot. Big siren thing. and shops would buy it because they'd had the Siren bloke on the phone earlier that day. I'd do a bowl around central London shops, call in the morning and visit in the afternoon. Flying in Kensington Market, bought loads. The 12-inch had my mum's phone number on there. I'd get home and she'd have taken a message. A lovely man called Darren Emerson rang. He'd like you to call him back. He left his number. Eventually, Song of the Siren made its way on the radar of the right people, including Andrew Weatherall, who picked it up and began spinning it at clubs. It wasn't long before it became a staple in UK underground dance sets, and people began to start taking serious notice of these so-called Dust Brothers. Ed, Andy Weatherall, Justin Robertson, and Darren Emerson each used to play the track a lot. You'd notice it in their sets because clubs were soundtracked by fast techno at that point. It sounded odd. It was an end-of-the-night record at Sabersonics. You'd hear the record that preceded it being pitched down and the siren coming in. Song of the Siren became a cult hit, prompting boutique label Junior Boy Zone, known for championing acts like Underworld and the Sabres of Paradise, to officially sign them. This was vital in setting the stage for their debut album the following year. As their profile continued to grow, the duo would balance gigs with nights where they'd stay in waiting for inspiration to hit, continually refining new tracks like Chemical Beats. One night, they had a random knock at the door. Bernard Sumner. The Hacienda used to finish at 2 a.m. One night, I was out with some friends and a few of the Happy Mondays. We were trying to find a party. Someone had a piece of paper with an address, and we went and banged on the door. The door slowly opened about 6 inches, and this eyeball peered out. When the person saw me, the door opened a bit wider, and I saw this guy with long hair. Must have been Tom. And he took a look at me and my mates. I thought it must have been a look of recognition. I thought, why is he looking at me like that? I said, is this where the party is? I can hear music. And he replied, there's no party here. I decided that he didn't like the look of me or the look of my friends. I was pretty off it. I think I said to him, well, fuck off then, you wurzled bastard. I never knew until years later it was Tom and Ed. I just thought they were snotty students and they didn't like the look of us. Ed suddenly put his head over Tom's shoulders and said, you're not coming in here dressed like that. And Tom said, no trainers. They should have let us in. They'd have had loads of fun and made new contacts in the Manchester area. I could have introduced them to the city's criminal underworld. Besides wrong address late night encounters, the duo was also rubbing shoulders with rock stars in other ways. Their growing influence brought remix offers. Bands like the Charlatans, Manic Street Preachers, and Primal Scream sought them out for their genre-smashing sensibility. These remixes weren't just reworks. They were total reconstructions, blending guitar-driven rock with breakbeats and spacey synth lines. It was clear Tom and Ed were doing something different. They weren't just producing dance music, they were rewriting what it could be. But with success came a problem. The original Dust Brothers in the US weren't thrilled about their name being used overseas. Manager Robert Linney recalls, I got woken up at night with a fax coming through with a cease and desist letter from the US Dust Brothers, who wanted their name back. Threats of legal action followed, and Tom and Ed realized they'd have to start fresh. They chose a new name inspired by one of their recently completed tracks that was going over well live, Chemical Beats. And so, the Chemical Brothers were born. Far from a setback, the name change marked a turning point. In 1994, they signed with Virgin Records under the label's new offshoot, Freestyle Dust, named as a playful nod to their past. Around the same time, they began touring with The Prodigy, who were already well on their way to dance music domination. The Chemical Brothers' live sets were a revelation. Visceral, audio-visual experiences that blurred the lines between rock and rave, attracting fans from both scenes. With massive speaker stacks, trippy projections, and beats that could rattle your bones, they were unlike anything else happening in electronic music at the time. All this momentum led to one inevitable step, an album. The Determined to capture the spirit of their DJ sets and club experiments, the Chemical Brothers headed into the studio to build their debut. They wanted something that pulsed with the same chaotic energy as a peak time set at the Heavenly Sunday Social. The resulting album was Exit Planet Dust, a name that symbolized their departure from the Dust Brothers moniker and their transition into something entirely new. The record was a mission statement: gritty, psychedelic, relentless. Released on June 26, 1995 via JBO, Virgin, and Freestyle Dust, Exit Planet Dust blended hip-hop swagger, rock energy, acid house aggression, and psychedelic textures into something entirely its own. In a decade bursting with electronica, this record became a blueprint for a new kind of sonic rebellion. The album kicks off with Leave Home, a mission statement disguised as a banger. With its repeated promise that the brothers gonna work it out, Leave Home is one of the most emphatic album openers ever. Beginning with a sample of Kraftwerk's Home Sweet Home, the track barrels forward with pounding break beats and a grimy bass line that practically oozes out of the speakers. It found life beyond the album too, blasting through clubs, commercials, and compilations. But in the context of Exit Planet Dust, it's the welcome mat to an unpredictable, genre-hopping ride. The track segues into In Dust We Trust, a head-nodding, more upbeat affair, fusing psychedelic textures, breakbeat rhythms, and distorted bass guitar into a hypnotic, propulsive journey. Gradually swirling synths and vocal samples join in, creating a dynamic build-up that reflects the duo's roots in both dance music and rock. The next major highlight is Song to the Siren. Originally released in 1992 under their Dust Brothers moniker, here it's being subtly updated and recontextualized. The brothers roll back the sirens, but up the tempo on the Meat Beat Manifesto sampled breakbeats and include elements from Bill Deal and the Rondel's funky Tux theme, adding a new dimension to the track and pushing it firmly into big beat territory. This seamlessly transitions into Three Little Birdies downbeats. I suppose this is where I should mention that the entire first half of this record is one long seamless mix. Like one of their early sets, the music is all the more stronger for it. This track is a funky, trippy acid house freakout that loops and builds over several minutes, letting the euphoric groove breathe and mutate in unexpected ways. Next, we get Fuck Up beats, in and out in under 2 minutes, but it's pure sonic chaos. Looping samples, hissy vinyl textures, and an overdriven rhythm collide in what feels like a tribute to Public Enemy's Bomb Squad production. It's aggressive, raw, and punk in spirit. Electronic music with a chipped tooth. And then comes that track, Chemical Beats. This is the centerpiece. Originally part of their early DJ sets, it's a monster. A huge, distorted drum break keeps pace with a tidal wave of squelchy acid synths. It sounds like machines going to war and dancing while they do it. This wasn't just big beat, this was huge beat. Ed Simons. I think Chemical Beats is the essence of what we do live. It feels like our anthem, a track that we'll never not play live. If a gig hasn't connected, Chemical Beats can often turn things on its head. People come to see bands to hear the hits. We have those moments where people want to hear Galvanize or Hey Boy, Hey Girl. But I think with Chemical Beats, people are picking up on something much more elemental, something that's being viscerally expressed and responded to. Chemical Beats would go on to define their early sound. influencing everyone from Fatboy Slim to the Prodigy's later work. It's one of those tracks that cracked the ceiling for electronic music on the mainstream radar, blurring the line between club culture and rock festivals. Chico's groove changes the mood entirely. It's lush, down-tempo, and deeply melodic, a floating moment of introspection after the intensity of chemical beats. Blending almost shoegaze textures with a head-bobbing beat, it shows the duo's range. They could create immersive moodscapes too. One Too Many Mornings continues this vibe, merging the overdriven and dreamy textures of indie band Swallow with stereo MCs. There's something melancholic here, a hint of sadness wrapped inside the incessant vocal refrain. It gives the album emotional depth and is my personal favorite moment on Exit Planet Dust. Life is Sweet is another standout, capturing the Chemical Brothers at their most anthemic and genre-blurring, combining breakbeat-driven electronica with indie rock swagger. Released as a single, the 12-inch included an absolutely essential early remix by the then unknown French duo Daft Punk. Featuring vocals from Tim Burgess of the Charlatans, the track fuses catchy, melodic hooks with gritty synths, distorted guitar textures, and a propulsive rhythm that builds towards a euphoric climax. It's also a pivotal track in retrospect. Life is Sweet prefigured the hybrid approach that would define the Chemical Brothers' future work, collaborating with vocalists like Noel Gallagher, Beth Orton, and Q-Tip. This wasn't dance music in isolation. No, this was electronic music playing in the big leagues. The penultimate track, Playground for a Wedgeless Firm, is brief but full of personality. Another sample-heavy psychedelic jam that showcases their crate-digging creativity. The influence this would have on everyone from Fatboy Slim to MGMT is highly evident. It's like an interlude from an imaginary blaxploitation movie filtered through glitchy tech, a wink and a nod before the final chapter. So much of Exit Planet Dust is wired with a kind of joyride energy. Alive Alone is different. Fragile in both sound and mood, it's a brace position at the end of a car chase. In some ways, the song questions all that's come before it. Alive Alone is a moment of redemption, a crack of light through the curtains as the weekend ends and reality drifts back in. This was music for after the club, the soundtrack to all those new friendships that formed on the dance floor. Featuring ethereal vocals from Beth Orton, it's a haunting closer. Beth. I remember sitting on the floor of the shower room in Orinoco Studio with Tom whispering the words to me. I was trying to get the melody as close to what he was singing, but there's some interpretation in what was recorded. The moment was so tender. It's funny because we didn't really speak a whole lot about what the song meant. There was just this real tender bridging of experiences through the song itself. This beautiful feeling of passing a secret understanding between us, as if I could say for him what neither of us had the ability to say any other way. Again, where all the best art comes from. The track feels like the come down after the party, the sunrise after the rave. It's gentle, melancholic, and strangely comforting, like floating through space with nothing but echoes and memory. This is my original Exit Planet Dust CD. (2005) repress, first LP, second LP, Original Leave Home 12-inch featuring the Sabres of Paradise mix. Original Leave Home second 12-inch featuring Underworld Mix 1, Underworld Mix 2. Absolute banger. Those early Underworld mixes, unreal. Original Life is Sweet 12-inch featuring the Daft Punk remix. This is the Wipeout Excel soundtrack featuring the Chemical Brothers' Loops of Fury, which came out in 1996 after Exit Planet Dust, and Leave Home Underworld Mix 1. And from 1996, Loops of Fury. Exit Planet Dust was a seismic moment. It declared that electronic music could be raw, emotional, and wildly eclectic. It proved that sampling and programming could be just as expressive as guitars and drums. And it turned the Chemical Brothers into genre-defining icons practically overnight. Before its release, most dance music was designed for 12-inch singles and late-night sets. But Tom and Ed proved that an electronic album could flow like a rock record with tension and release, detours and emotional arcs. That narrative structure became the sonic blueprint for all their future albums and inspired countless others to think beyond the dance floor. The influence of this record can be felt across the entire big beat movement of the late 90s. Artists like Fatboy Slim, Basement Jaxx, and Groove Armada all picked up the torch. But its reach goes even further into indie electronic hybrids, festival lineups, and even film and game soundtracks. Following the album's release, the duo were thanked in the liner notes of Better Living Through Chemistry by Fatboy Slim and Homework by Daft Punk. While the Chemical Brothers would go on to create more ambitious albums such as Dig Your Own Hole, Surrender, and Further, Exit Planet Dust remains the raw, unfiltered beginning. One of the most immediate ripple effects was felt in the rise of the big beat genre. You can hear the fingerprints of Exit Planet Dust all over albums like Fatboy Slim's You've Come a Long Way, Baby, especially in tracks like Right Here, Right Now, which shares DNA with Leave Home. Outside the UK, Exit Planet Dust opened up new doors for American and European producers. The Dust Brothers themselves, yes, the original ones from the US, took inspiration from how the Chemical Brothers translated crate-digging aesthetics into dance music. And acts like the Crystal Method, who dropped Vegas in 1997, leaned hard into the Chemical Brothers formula of high-octane beats, acid bass, and a cinematic sense of scale. But influence wasn't just sonic, it was structural. Exit Planet Dust showed that you could combine underground credibility with commercial viability without selling out. The idea of collaborating with rock vocalists or pop-friendly acts wasn't seen as a compromise anymore. It became a strategy. Later acts like Basement Jaxx, Roykskop, and Justice all played with the same dynamic, keeping things weird but still making them work for the masses. Even decades later, the legacy of Planet Dust continues to resonate. In the 2010s, you can hear its echoes in artists like Daniel Avery, who blends analog grit with pulsing atmospheres. After its release, the Chemical Brothers' live performances kept escalating in energy and intensity. Brighter lights, bolder visuals, massive sound systems. That energy changed how people experienced electronic shows. It paved the way for festival main stages and arena gigs dominated by DJs and producers helping set the stage for everything from Coachella's dance tents to the global rise of EDM culture. In 1995, Exit Planet Dust captured the pulse of a generation caught between the rave's afterglow and the dawn of a new electronic era. In the year that followed, their success would climb even higher after a chance encounter when Tom Rowlands bumped into Noel Gallagher in a field at Glastonbury, sparking a collaboration that would take things to the next level. Noel Gallagher, you've got Tim Burgess on your record. Give us a go. I can do that. But that's a story for another video. At its core, Exit Planet Dust said that electronic music could be wild, cinematic, genreless, and still deeply human. That message, crafted by two music-obsessive history majors, landed in 1995 and has echoed ever since, shaping the direction of electronic music for decades. For Tom and Ed, the Chemical Brothers, it was the spark that lit a creative fire that they're still feeding, album after album, beat after beat. So, that's gonna do it for today. I'm gonna link below an excerpt in The Quietest to the Chemical Brothers paused in cosmic reflection, talking about Song to the Siren. For further reading on the Chemical Brothers' early years, as well as the rest of their prolific career, I highly recommend checking out the full Paused in Cosmic Reflection, the definitive, fully illustrated history of the Chemical Brothers. If you enjoyed this video, kindly give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing so you don't miss my upcoming Electronic 1997 series covering that seismic year for the genre. What do you think of Exit Planet Dust, and where would you rank it in the Chemical Brothers discography? Let me know below, as well as if you'd like to see another video on the Chemical Brothers or any other electronic artists. Thanks for watching. You can see more of my videos right here. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you guys in the next one.